This episode is sponsored by Turn Gymnastics Apparel, the brand dedicated solely to the sport of men's gymnastics. Choose Turn this season to outfit your team with industry-leading design concepts and elevated options for elite performance. Get the design process started today. Visit turn-gymnastics.com to discover the latest possibilities. Turn. Never done perfecting. Thank you, Turn, for supporting the Sam Oldham podcast. Supporting Turn helps us bring you new content every single week from the world of gymnastics. I hope you enjoy this episode of the Sam Oldham podcast. In the men's all-around final that took place on Wednesday night in Paris, Oka Shinnosuke was crowned the all-around champion ahead of the two Chinese athletes, Zhang Boheng and Xiao Routeng. The top 24 gymnasts on the planet competed across the 6 men's gymnastics events in a very competitive final. Joe Fraser and Jake Jarmin performed incredibly well to finish 5th and 7th for TeamGB. Daiki Hashimoto, the reigning Olympic and world champion, struggled once again, and the unluckiest man of the night was Ukrainian Ilia Kovtun, who finished in 4th place. I'm joined today by Daniel Purvis, London 2012 Olympic bronze medalist, and this is our story. Dan, it's great to have you on, mate, as the Olympics are going on. What's it been like watching the games this time, and have you enjoyed it?
Oh, mate, I've loved it. I've sat back. I've had a beer each night, to be honest. I've been trying to cut down, but it's just so much entertainment. And the GB lads and women are doing incredible. So, you know, having someone to root for is fantastic as well.
It's amazing, isn't it, how well the guys and the girls have done. I have to say, the girls, I think their result in the team final was a bit of a surprise because of the injuries that they've had. Did incredibly well to be just 2/10 off and another Olympic team medal, an amazing achievement. And then the men in 4th, you know, we had Hamish on and we talked about the team final, and I don't think it was a case of the GB guys didn't lose the medal. The Americans just won it. They were very, very good, weren't they? Obviously, we're going to talk today about the all-around final. Before we do that, what were your expectations, Dan, going into the all-around final in terms of who you're expecting to do well, having watched the rest of the gymnastics so far, and how did you expect the GB guys might fare in that all-around final?
Yeah, well, to be honest, mate, because I'm quite far out the game of elite gymnastics, and, you know, as I'm a fan of it now, I watch European World Championships, Olympics, that's once every 4 years. So listening to your podcast, you have an expert on. Listen to Hamish the other day. It's like, okay, so I knew sort of the best gymnast in the world who should be if they turn up. So, you know, I thought... Daiki, is it?
Yeah.
The Japanese guy? Or the new sort of Chinese guy has been phenomenal. I thought 1 and 2, dependent. And then, honestly, I thought Joe or Jake for bronze. I really did.
Did you think that
I thought after seeing them in the team final, how sharp they look, how good they look. And, you know, all-round final, anything can happen. And I thought they look like they're getting better and better this games. So, and they were close.
They were really close, mate, and they finished 5th and 7th, which is an amazing result, isn't it? What were your big takeaways, Dan, from the team final and the gymnastics that you saw? What were some of the things that stuck out for you? Maybe some of the athletes that you saw going into that all-around final that you thought, okay, they're going to be in with a shot, or this is a routine I'm going to look out for?
Yeah, I mean, Vinayev, he just doesn't cease to impress me. I mean, he's been going so long now and he looks so sharp. Incredible. I didn't realise the other Ukrainian, a bit younger, he was phenomenal.
He's a unit, isn't he? He doesn't really look like your typical gymnast. Like, he's tall, stacked,
but fast twitch.
Yeah,
it's like it's like a giant.
It doesn't make sense, does it? The way in which he competes.
Oh, he can do it, but use it to advantage. Yeah, incredible. I see the Americans. You know, I was gutted. Brody wasn't in. Brody Malone. Wasn't in the all-round final. But he did fantastic in the team final, didn't he? Hit that bar.
Yeah, I'm very happy for him. He had that kind of redemption story of being the guy that went up and was very dependable in that team final. I also felt that it showed a lot of confidence in him, putting him up in pommel horse in the team final after the qualification that he had. So I'm glad for him that he's got that medal now to kind of, you know, because that qualification was a tough day for him, and it can be hard, can't it, to pick yourself up. You know, we've spoke earlier today about how difficult it is if you have a mistake in that qualification, then going into that team final, it's almost more pressure on yourself, isn't there? So I'm glad that he had that experience then in the team final. What do you think to Frederick RICHARD, the American? Do you find his gymnastics exciting?
Oh,
he's a pretty cool guy,
mate.
right?
He's so cool.
He's kind of a guy that like has the talk but backs it up too.
Oh, he's amazing. And you know what? I listened to the podcast he was on with you. What he's doing is so clever as well. You're going around different sports. Obviously, I think he's on a campus, is he? And he sounds like he lives, eats and breathes gymnastics. You know, he stays in that gym, doesn't he? He does bits on the side, but he just loves the sport. And his progression, watching the American trials, I thought, I thought as well, he's going to have a good chance of getting that bronze medal. I mean, to be honest, I just thought 1 and 2, that's sorted. A bit, they're just at that level. But I think he's certainly going to be there at the next cycle. But again, one mistake up on a horse, and you know, it's heartbreaking to watch. But this is elite sport, you know, especially in gymnastics. If you have one mistake, it's hard to get back up that ladder. And there's quite a few mistakes in that overall. So.
How difficult is it, Dan, to compete at a major championships? And if you are one of the top all-rounders, potentially like yourself in London, competing in that team final, you're going to do 6 apparatus in qualification, 6 apparatus in the team final, maybe 5, and then 6 apparatus again in the all-around final. Just how tough is that to get yourself up for that all-around final then and be ready for it?
Yeah, to me, in my personal experience, I was always fit enough by that point. You know, quite often it was the qualification, then it was the team, especially the more successful you got as a nation, getting into team finals, and then the all-round. So I was used to it, but mentally very hard to switch on and off, and especially the highs like we experienced in London 2012. It's the other side of it, the media, the late nights, because normally you finish later on, the excitement, the adrenaline to switch off, and then to start again, to start afresh, to start like, okay, it's a blank canvas now. It's all to play for again. That is a tough ask, and I think that comes with experience. But as you know, Olympics are once every 4 years, so you don't get many opportunities to experience that back-to-back, especially at a game. So as you can see, that's probably why you get uncharacteristic mistakes, I guess, at the Olympics more than you would at, say, a World Championships, for instance. How
much do you think, Dan, the way the team final played out will have had an impact on some of those individual performances? So, you know, I'm thinking straight away from Zhang Boheng with the Chinese literally throwing it away. That must be one of the biggest margins a team's gone into the last apparatus in the lead by ever in a team final. 3 marks, you know, effectively, if they're clean falls, potentially you can fall 3 times and still win. For how soul-destroying that must have been to lose out on that Olympic gold medal. For him going into that all-around final after that experience and being the last guy up, and then equally the Japanese coming from behind and winning, and what that must have done for Oka Shinnosuke, the new young guy who's 20 years old. How much do you think that will have played a role going into the all-around final?
Oh, I think massive. I think it's all mental at that game. I think it's all that mental mindset. I mean, half the battle is getting the fitness, getting the routines, and they're experts at it. But that 1 up or 3 up, 3 to count, that last gymnast up on the bar and having that mistake and then resetting yourself and then going for the all-round final, feeling, I imagine, the disappointment you would have felt. I mean, the team medal, I think, in my opinion, is really the biggest one because it's accumulation of how good the program is and how good everyone works together. So that is just a telltale. And obviously China and Japan always battling out as well. And I mean, that routine is so unlike, it was massive, wasn't it? And you can tell, I think, if you were a gymnast, you knew exactly what he was trying to do, which was just grab that bar no matter what. And he was just that momentum, pulled him off. I think he was thinking, right, I'll catch on my teeth at this point. I just got to stay on this bar. But, you know, he picked himself up. And obviously, again, there was a mistake, wasn't there? I think in the all-round final that he had, was it? Did he have a mistake in the all-round
final? Zhang Boheng. So obviously the gymnast we're talking about on the high bar that had the mistakes was Sue Wade, right? When he missed his straight catch and then got up, Mr. Coleman, and very similar falls as well, kind of like straight up, straight down. Didn't really get his dowels on, kind of wasn't looking at the bar. And then Zhang did a good routine afterwards, but it was only enough for silver. And then going into the all-around final, he starts on floor and he makes a mistake and he does a 3.5 punch half, puts his hands down. How tough is it, Dan, in an all-around final like that, where you know that everyone you're competing against are the best in the world, and maybe you're in that top group, and if you have a mistake on the first apparatus, how tough is it mentally then to get yourself back up for it and stay in the race?
Yeah, I mean, everyone's different, and I think in that top 8 there are different levels. I mean, for me, it was just consistency. Like, you stay on the pieces if you can, and then maybe if you're in a chance for a medal, fantastic, but try and aim for that top 8. But I think if you're defending world champion or Olympic champion, that's a different level of pressure.
Kind of have to go for it from the bat straight away, don't you?
And you could see the pressure, especially from is it
Hashimoto?
Hashimoto,
the current Olympic champion.
Incredible. But you could see the focus on his face, and you could see the pressure. And what was interesting is when I used to compete against Uchimura, see him on TV, no matter what it was, he never looked like obviously he wasn't like he's human, of course, but he never showed the pressure, and that was interesting. But and like we've seen with Uchimura, in my opinion, the greatest gymnast in the world. Mistakes will happen at the Olympics at the highest level because it's an extra bit of pressure, and once you have one mistake, you're climbing that ladder, and they've got the start value to do it. But when he was up against the Chinese guy, especially, who was, I'm guessing this cycle has been very close, 1 and 2.
And he was coming in with a lot of pressure, right?
Yes.
I think if you're the top guy in Japan, the national sport, you've had the success of Uchimura, you are the current Olympic champion. That's going to be, that's heavy, isn't it? That pressure. He's the reigning Olympic champion. He's trying to win back-to-back. People are talking about him potentially going on to be the greatest if he can beat Uchimura's medal record. So, a lot of pressure. I think he had a little injury going into the competition as well. But I think the Chinese gymnast probably surprised everybody in qualifying, hitting such a high score. And it looked like he hasn't seemed completely comfortable for the whole competition. Mistakes in qualifying, had a mistake in the team final again, falling off pommels. He fell again on the second apparatus on pommel horse. So just not quite at his best. Something's not quite right there. How hard is that, Dan, when you're in an all-around final and you're like, right, this is a big moment, might not get this chance again. How tough is it when you don't feel quite like when you know, I don't feel great? How much then does it become a mental battle of almost trying to trick yourself into feeling good,
Oh, it's, like I say, I think it's all mental that, but as long as you've had good preparation, the routines have gone well, and Hashimoto, maybe he's not had the best preparation, I don't know, but it's some characteristic mistakes of his. But I think a lot of gymnasts in that all-round final, I think even if you're not 100%, you've got to just stay, you've got to do your routine, and you could, excuse me, potentially if you've got routines, maybe it's pommel for instance, and it's a little bit scruffy, but you manage to stay on, you can pick those scores up if you're a ring, extra good on rings. Obviously, vault, that's a big one. I used to feel the most pressure on vault because that was the highest scoring piece. So I was like, if I fall on this, I might be able to have a little mistakes on everything else, like large landings, things like that. But vault, you're out the race. And also as well, it depends on where you finish. If you qualify in 8th, or the top 8 will start on floor. After that, it's pommel, rings. So you're adjusting as well because you might have been in the team event or the qualification started on bars. So it's a different thing. It's a different adrenaline starting on a different apparatus. Or for me, it was anyway. I used to really like starting on rings. I could get everything, all the strength in that. Starting on a piece like floor, which normally is the all-round, I found quite hard to control those landings.
So your preference, Dan, would be not to start on floor and do the Olympic order? Interesting, because my preference would always be to do the Olympic order, and I think that was because I'd always train Olympic order, so I'd want to start on floor, but it probably helped finishing on high bar. Felt like if I was in a good position, the last apparatus, and I just go for it on bar.
I guess bars was your best
and
piece,
also
wasn't
one
it?
of my best
for me, floor was probably so it makes sense, doesn't it?
Yeah. So, but you would like to start on rings and finish on pommel.
Oh yeah, think about it. Well, I guess the Europeans we did, to be honest.
We did. The Europeans in 2015. We started, didn't we? We started on rings. Started on rings, finished on pommel.
On pommel, I had to go clean to get a bronze medal for that. And to be honest, I preferred finishing on it than then starting in a team final. Because you're nervous. That nerve's never gone away. But throughout the competition, you just learn to cope with it, and your body adjusts to it, and your mind. And it's more like fight or flight at that point, and there's nothing you can do. I think when you start from a clean slate, and this is what I watched, that's those first 2-3 that's the toughest bit. You could see, I was watching the women's all around yesterday, and even small bios, you could see like the pressure even from her, needing a vault but then having a small mistake on A bars. It wasn't a clear win. She knew she'd have to still climb, so any mistakes can happen, and when you do, how do you pick yourself up? But it's a measure of a true champion if you can do it.
Yeah. And incredible that the Chinese gymnast obviously started with that mistake on floor and managed to, and that's a testament to the difficulty that he had. What stuck out for you in those first couple of rotations then, Dan? Are you impressed with the style and the technique of the Japanese gymnast Oka Shinnosuke, who won the gold medal? I mean, he does some beautiful gymnastics, right? His first tumble, that back and full out straight, just
beautiful.
Technician.
Beautiful. I mean, I've always been a fan of the Japanese gymnasts, and when I was competing, when we'd have training camps, go to Mexico, and we'd see the juniors coming through, you can see just the style, just the calmness of the gymnastics, and it's beautiful to watch. And you can see the transition from a junior to how well they are as seniors. The difficulty for me is just incredible. It's almost like all-rounders. I think when I was sort of competing, it was like you'd have, one really good standout piece, and then the others might be quite steady. I feel like now, since Vanayev, he raised that bar, like pretty much he was getting into individual finals on each piece almost, as an all-rounder in World Cups. Now I feel like all these all-rounders, like the top 3, 4, 5, they're all specialists. Like, it's that high level, but with high risk, high reward. So, but just to talk about the Japanese gymnastics, just so elegant. And even when they have a mistake, It's
looks
elegant.
nice. Yeah. How do you? Obviously, Dan, when we were younger, the Japanese gymnasts, they wouldn't celebrate much, were they? Very quiet, very. Now they go crazy.
Yeah.
And I think that started with that younger generation. Can you remember that gymnast that when we were in Mexico? Can you remember that he like caught a Kovac and just ran around the gym for 10 minutes celebrating?
Oh,
he was high-fiving everyone.
Yeah,
and we were like, what's going on?
So nice to see, wasn't it?
Yeah, but they started, didn't they, to like chain and like really like they make a big deal of it. You know, I think they were crying in the team final.
Yeah.
And they were some of the guys that we trained with in Cancun. They were the juniors back then. So it's nice to see that. What about the GB guys starting on pommel, Dan? Obviously, they're incredibly consistent, I think. And that's the one thing that stood out for me from the qualification. Yeah. We've just been very consistent. So clearly very well prepared, right?
Oh, mate, I was absolutely buzzing the rest of the day watching the GB lads smash it in qualification. And I was telling people around me that I'd watched the competition, I can't think of another like a better start for GB. You know, they hit everything. You know, how many individual finals have you made?
Yeah, I think that's got to be the most finals we've ever made, right? So I think we had 2 all-around finals, 6 apparatus finals, and then the team final. So 9 finals in total.
Incredible. And to be honest, I thought they would struggle really to get onto that team medal before the games, but after the qualification and the qualifying affair, I thought, I think America might struggle now. Yeah. Thinking, well, I think, I don't know, I wonder if America went into that GB in America, but they sort of thought, right, our start values might be higher, might be able to get this. GB, I think, might have been more the chasers. I don't know, obviously, the conversations, but I think that changed the dynamic. And certainly when I saw it, I was like, right, we're going to get this team medal. And then seeing the start of the competition, Jake Jarmin going first on pommel, doing a beautiful pommel routine. Then the other boys smashing it. It was like, okay, well, this could be reminiscent of 2012, having a clean pommel and then going from there. But they did a phenomenal job.
Dan, when you're watching when you're part of an all-around final, or even when you're watching, and for you in your experience, what were the key apparatus that you felt like, okay, to be a great all-rounder and to perform well and finish towards the top of the rankings, these are the key apparatus that I need to be good at and I need to hit?
Yeah. Certainly pommel.
Okay.
I think so. I think, I mean, Max Whitlock, great example, fantastic all-rounder. And his floor was amazing. So he had a double whammy. He had a fantastic floor and a fantastic pommel. And then it would probably normally go rings, vault, people, high bar. Yeah. So he'd have a steady everything else. So he was already, got a good boost there. So I think pommel was the main one for me. If I could stay on pommel, get a good score, then I knew my P-bars would be more of a higher score. So I'd definitely say pommel. That's a massive one, obviously staying on. But if you can get a big score, happy days as well, because a lot of people in an all-round final are going to crumble on pommel, big pressure. And then obviously vault, I don't know if it's still the highest scoring piece, but certainly you're going to, get a massive score if you can nail that landing, stay in the lines and no major mistakes. And high bar, I say high bar is such a massive one, especially when you've gone all round. They're playing for the medals. 1, 2, 3. Your mind's thinking other things. You're thinking just stay on this bar, or are you thinking I just want to be in the top 8, happy? Or you're thinking I'm going for gold. Yeah. But the judges, that's the last thing they're going to see. Obviously, it's a subjective sport, and the judges aren't seeing. They can see who's up for the medals and what score they need, and that's out of your control. All you can do is your routine. But part of you at that point maybe is thinking as well, I've got to give it everything. Yeah. And if you can do a beautiful bar routine, and I think as well, watching gymnastics, bars, those releasing catches, stick your dismount, happy days.
Yeah, and you're right, that's the last thing the judge is going to see, right? And it does play a role, that is a factor. On pommel, Dan, Daiki Hashimoto obviously has the mistake and falls off on his shear, but one thing I noticed, there was a lot of gymnasts stepping off the handle on their shear to handstand. I counted 3 or 4. How tough is it to control that nervous energy when you're starting and doing your shear to handstand on part? How difficult is that to do in a situation like that where you're fully aware, right, I've trained 4 years for this moment?
Yeah. Oh, mate, Again, it goes back to mind games. Like, how do you imagine that you're just another day in the gym, which you can do 10 times out of 10? And I mean, that's the beauty of watching live sport, live gymnastics, especially because those mistakes probably aren't happening in the gym. Otherwise, it wouldn't be in the routines. But that's the pressure, and that's the making of a really good champion. How do you control that pressure? And I've got to say, Max Whitlock, the pressure he's been under. I mean, to go into the qualification, do that beautiful routine, to do his beautiful routine in the team final, he's under the most pressure. And that comes from experience. And what I think as well is the Japanese team, they're all still really young as well. Hashimoto, is he 20?
He's still young.
Still
22
young, yeah.
Maybe.
22, mate, yeah. So, again, it's probably, even though he's done incredible things, world champion, Olympic champion, it's probably still new experiences.
Yeah.
How to, control those nerves. under Pommel, under a team final, all round competition. It's I really do think it's experience, or as well as that, just really believing yourself and doing the numbers and muscle memory. I think that's a key as well. Even if you're so nervous and wound up, knowing that your body can do it, as long as you can just stay calm and breathe. And
you really felt, Dan, like you were aware that, okay, in this final, there are going to be a number of gymnasts that are going to fall on pommels. So I have to go through. That's like a very important thing to do. Definitely, yeah. Especially if I was starting on floor. Like I say, I didn't dislike starting on floor, but I never felt like I would be able to stick all my landings like I would if I was towards the latter end. So that's like, if I can stay on one of my highest scoring pieces, go with the pommel, stay on that, then okay, I've given myself a good shot at getting at least in the top 8 and then potentially a medal. Yeah, but that pommel, it's a tricky one. It's like the women's beam, isn't it? You know, one mistake, and I think it's the one where you play the most mind games with yourself as well. Do you think it's an advantage, Dan, do you think you have more of an advantage being in that top group, so the top 8, so everyone's expecting to be one of the top guys, or potentially being one of the other groups, so maybe the second 8 or the third 8, and starting on a piece where maybe there's not so much attention on you, and you can kind of sneak up, because that's kind of what Oleg did, right? Like he had a strong push at the start. You know, he had his vault, his pommel horse, parallel bars. Do you feel like actually sometimes it's an advantage not being in that top group? I think it can be, especially if you're not used to it. Like if you've not been in that top group as an all-rounder at the World Championships, then you've not got used to it. I mean, I used to be in awe of Uchimura. I used to be starstruck as well, but I have to think I'm not focusing on him. I'm in his group. That's fantastic. It's great to look back on, but I'm focusing on me. And for me, I used to like starting in the top 8. I think for me, it raised my game. I remember in London, because I had a fall in the qualification, I started on pommel. I went through pommel, but I didn't feel as confident because I was so used to, in Rotterdam and Tokyo World Championships, being on the floor for the top 8. Yeah, so that was a change for me. But I think everyone's so different, mate. And some people, it can take the pressure off them, maybe. And especially if you're going for that bronze medal. If you're already thinking 1 and 2 sorted, that bronze medal, that could be anyone's, as long as you can stay on it. You can come through, you know, towards the latter end of the competition. Especially if you start on a piece, maybe like rings, for instance. You know what? I saw a lot of the cameramen filming rings for the first rotation. Yeah, lots of rings, right? Yeah, and it was nice to see a mix of other gymnasts, especially because I only get to see it at the majors now. So the quality of gymnastics overall in that all-round final was great to see. And how tough is it, mate? How tough is rings? How tough is it to be strong on rings and be an all-rounder, you know, and have that balance, and then being able to swing on pommel horse, but, you know, having the spatial awareness to do floor, it's really hard, isn't it? I mean, for me, it seems like that difference between the top guys that are going to be in the Olympic rings final and everybody else that's the biggest gap in terms of the apparatus for me. In terms of the standard, like that standard of being a strong, there's just a big difference, isn't there? You're seeing a lot of routines with straddle planches, maybe a cross, maybe a straight planche, but you're not seeing the strength you're going to get in an Olympic team apparatus final on rings. No, and like you say, mate, if you've got a good rings, if you're almost a specialist and can do the other pieces, I mean, it's almost like having a massive pommel. Like, it's just not many all-rounders are really like that strong, are they? Like it's almost like it's not supposed to be that way, you know. It doesn't feel fair. But then the Chinese, you look at the Chinese, just how good are they? And they're a mark or whatever ahead just on the rings. And their positions in their ring strength is just crazy, isn't it? Absolutely. Like, the difficulty that they've got. And it just seems to me like they've just, you can see the volume of numbers and repetitions they've done. They're just like machines. So going into that, Oleg's had a bit of a push. He's kind of top of the leaderboard. Did you see his parallel bars routine? So his classic parallel bars routine that he did, kind of the same routine he used to do, right? Yeah. Very similar to that routine. Yeah. Dan, how do you feel about, obviously, for me, when I listen to gymnastics on TV now, and whichever commentary it is that I listen to, nobody referenced the fact that he got done for drug cheating and was doping. How he obviously took medals and money off you in your career and was second all around at the Rio Olympic Games, but nobody even makes a mention of it. Like, on a tangent. You know, what was always your, what did you think about doping within the sport of gymnastics? Because I kind of grew up thinking nobody would do that in gymnastics. Like, I didn't think anybody would do that. Now I'm not so naive, and I'm like, oh, well, you know, if maybe you grew up in a country where you weren't privileged to have, you know, the life that we maybe have here in the UK, right?
Yeah.
Then if somebody comes along and says, hey, look, there's an easier way that we can help you potentially earn some money and give that to your family, it's a complicated thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
What's your view on it, Dan? Like, do you feel like if you test positive and you're banned and you're found to be cheating, should you have your medal stripped? Do you know what I mean? Because it's tough, right? He's competing here at Olympic Games. We all know that he was banned from the sport. It was initially for 4 years, got reduced to 2 years. So he still was banned, but none of his medals were stripped.
No.
Like it's...
Mate, I've thought about this. I thought, because I wonder as well.
Because really, Max Whitlock, as far as I'm
I'm
concerned, is Olympic all-around silver medalist, you know, in Rio 2016.
Exactly,
right?
I mean, how far back do you go?
Yeah.
How far do you track it? I mean, I don't know if you could ever prove when he was first on it. I mean, obviously... You know, he got caught out, and I don't know what...
And he's obviously... He claims his innocence. And,
yeah, of course, I don't know what, if he said it was contaminated. You know, when it was... And I didn't even, at the time, like say, hear too much about it. Obviously, there's an article of it. Yeah. And then he was saying it's not right. But I still don't know the drug.
But obviously, if you're the International Federation of Gymnastics, it's not a good look, is it?
It's not a good look.
You're going to want that to go away as quick as you can.
Yeah, of course.
You don't want it to be somebody from your sport that's been found cheating, so you're going to try and keep it quiet and like brush it away a little bit. But
and the thing is as well,
it's just interesting that nobody ever mentions it.
No,
you know?
I wonder if it's because it's for Naev as well, and because he's such a likeable guy.
He still has to do the gymnastics.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, but it's like any
incredibly likeable guy. Like we spent a lot of time with him on the World Cup circuit, so it's not a personal thing. But in terms of, you know, when you grow up and you're, like for me, we grew up. I was clean. I'm pretty sure you were clean.
Yeah.
It's tough, isn't it?
It's right and wrong, isn't it? Like I think there shouldn't be, you know, room for. I don't know, it should just be if you've tested positive. Okay, it's like, I remember how much scrutiny we were under. The drug testing we had to do middle of the night, all the morning before. I remember in London it was the day before the qualifications. I couldn't believe it.
And you were so frightened of something being contaminated, weren't you?
Milkshakes couldn't get protein. We had a lot of meetings about it. It's very diligent, wasn't it?
You had to keep the barcode of anything that you ate that was maybe risky, so that they could trace it back if you ever did get tested.
Yeah, exactly. And how important is it to have recovery drinks, to have vitamins in your system to help you recover? But I was terrified to take anything just in case. You know, I even got scared of eggs at one point in case it was contaminated. You know, I mean, it's frustrating as well how diligent. And if you're on that water testing pool, it is, especially in this country.
Yeah, and I just can't imagine it's the same in other countries.
It's not the same,
no way.
And it's a shame, but I think, I don't know what the drug was, but, you know, especially gymnastics, if it's to recover, how much of an advantage do you have?
It is a huge advantage, isn't it?
Remember the days of 2 routines? Imagine if you could do that back to back.
Well, look, gymnastics is a numbers game, right?
Yes,
so if you're able to do more reps or train even if you can train for 20 minutes longer every day, over a year, that's a lot of time, isn't it? And that's time that you can learn more skills. You're able to then, look, he did every competition under the sun, right? And look, he's not the only one here, but it just is interesting that nobody ever talks about that or makes a point of it. When even he's competing at the Olympic Games. Regardless of that, it's gymnastics. Very, very good.
He's
pommel horse and parallel bars look amazing, don't they? Given the fact that everything that's going on in that country in Ukraine at the moment, it's very, very impressive just how well they've done. And he made a push. It came to high bar and he struggled a little bit on high bar, not his best event. Did amazingly well. I don't know if anybody caught it, but on his Markelov, he caught on his grip and slipped down to his hand. So did really well not to panic there. And kept him. Yeah, that is experience, you're right. And still kept himself, you know, in with a medal shout going the whole way through. So Ilia Kovtun, the other Ukrainian that we spoke about in the beginning, did you see his P-bar routine? He obviously went up after Vinayev.
Oh, mate, it's incredible.
Amazing, right?
It was incredible. And it had everything. I mean, these front uprights, Stutz and Diamonovs, I'm guessing they've gone up in the cold. I remember I certainly tried it. I just could never do it. And it was one of them talked about skills that are probably going to go up the next couple of cycles. And he's just nailed that. But he's got everything, hasn't he? Under somersault, half. Under somersault, 1 bar Healy, some of the trickiest combinations. Double front, landing the stick. It was just incredible. I don't know if he's in the P-bar final, but certainly it was.
I think he is in the P-bar final, mate. Did you notice, Dan, how many appeals there were? I noticed a lot of appeals for like D scores. I don't know whether that's a reflection of the judging at the competition or whether gymnasts are not getting things counted, but quite often the appeals were withheld and they were successful, so the scores changed. So I don't know if you remember the Shinnosuke on rings. His score went from a 13.6 back up to a 14.8, and that was just about the difference in the end that made the difference, right? So it's important that if somebody in your team, they know exactly what your start values are, and if something goes wrong, you can then appeal it quickly to get it changed, right? If the judges get it wrong. That's quite important, right? Obviously in London 2012, that happened with the Japanese team.
You've got to fight for every 10th. Yeah. And, your coaches know your start value. You can't protest the execution, can you? But it's just the the start value. So you know your routine unless it's not been given. But if you know, like I've held my Maltese, for instance, for 3 seconds, there's no way. And I wonder now if they video the routines and the judges go back, what sort of appeal they have. Yeah, maybe they have that now because it is hard. I mean, when you judge, it's just human, isn't it? But if you've got those cameras, you can see black and white. Right? No, that was 2 seconds or 3 seconds. We get the skill given. I think. Yeah, experienced judges should really know, but sometimes you can get mixed up between a double and a triple twist. And mistakes do happen, but these are the best judges in the world. So
when you were competing, Dan, in an all-around final, and let's say Andre was taking you around or Jeff, would they know your start values in and out? Would you know them as well? Like, who would it, if something went wrong and you had to think fast, change your routine, would it be both of you trying to work out what that start value was, or would you know?
Yeah, I would know my start value. Okay. I would struggle if, for instance, I'm doing a flop on pommel and I've put my hand down and I've missed a connection.
Okay.
How much do I lose and do I lose the connection? But Jeff would know.
Okay.
And if I was going around with Frank, he would definitely know
for you.
He was trying to work out my start value. So like, Frank, I want to do diameter after this, and you have to short like this. Yeah, doing this calculation. It's like, nice one, mate. Yeah, sound. So what's that start value? 6'2"?
So you'd rely on coach more so for that.
Yeah, definitely.
If you were in that situation.
But then again, at the years of being at a World Cup event, these things have happened as well, and I had to say to Andre, "Oh no, I don't think that's right." I think I did do a 2.5 instead of a 1. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Well, I wouldn't think I knew. Yeah. So can you protest that? Because you know your own routines, don't you? Yeah. And that could be the frustrating thing when a judge says, "Oh no, you've not done that right," and you say, "No, I have. That is, I've done that." But then again, sometimes you do a skill and it might not get given. A great example, Markelov. If you don't do that with the straightest body, it's not going to get given. Mine was always a little bit
on the edge.
On the edge, yeah. 9 times out of 10 I'll get it given, but sometimes I would expect, okay, maybe I won't get that given. So own gymnasts know their own sort of weaknesses as well, I think. So it's just how well you know your own routines.
Yeah, I had an experience in an all-around competition at the British once where I was doing a high bar routine. I had a straight catch of straddle catch of half connection. When I pulled over, I bent my arms. And I didn't realise that if there was a big enough deduction on that giant, you don't get the connection. And that 2/10 would have put me in third, I think. But Sergey had gone out for a fag, and I'd gone up to the head judge on high bar. I was like, "James, you got my connection wrong, my start value." And he was going, "Sam, you can't do this with me right now. You need to go and get Sergey." And I was like, "He's out. He's smoking somewhere. I'm never going to find him. Come on."
Oh my God.
And so I was like trying to find Sergey to get him to come and argue it for me, because as the gymnast, you're not allowed to do that. It has to be the coach that does it on your behalf.
Do you know what's great? You're saying that. I remember Andy Toombs coming and watching us, and James May as well, in control comps and giving us feedback,
and it was really helpful, wasn't it?
So important, yeah. And I was thinking, I don't think that was latter 2012, but it was after that, wasn't it? That next cycle, and I was like, this is so important. Seeing it through the judges' eyes.
Through the judges' eyes and what they see. And one thing that always stood out for me was that the judges, they told me that when we're looking for skewing on pommel, so one hand in front of the other, we don't look for your hands, we're looking for your shoulders. Right. So if your shoulders are square, then the chances are your hands are going to be square. So rather than looking for the hands, we're looking for your shoulders. And I was like, that's really interesting, because as a gymnast, you'd just look for the hands, wouldn't you, straight away? What did you think then going into vault, Dan? Everybody seemed to perform pretty well on vault, right? And those all-arounders now, they're all doing triple twists pretty much, if not Dragolescu's. That level, Dan, of just the level of difficulty is just so high now, isn't it?
Oh, it is. It's massive. And if you've got that standout vault, I should have mentioned that before, that is another standout one. I think if you go from a 2.5 to a triple, that's another all-round moment. That's like it's like a mic drop, isn't it?
And you've got Jake doing 3.5 as well, which is
incredible. Well, I thought he's great pommel, great rings, great floor. Hopefully nail his vault, which he did, which is fantastic. And I was interested to see what Joe was going to do, because I've seen in training videos he's been working Dragolescu, and he did the 2.5, a beautiful 2.5 as well. But yeah, the other gymnasts, it was pressure on because of the Chinese and Japanese. Sorry, I shouldn't know the name. Hashimoto.
Yep.
And the Chinese.
Zhang.
Zhang, yeah. Yep. They were climbing. and they needed every 10th. So I reckon on vault they were thinking we need to stick these vaults, not just land them.
Yeah, and they were all good, weren't they? They all put them all on their feet, and then they go into P-bars, which is, for the Chinese and the Japanese, that's kind of their apparatus, right? I'd say Japanese maybe more high bar, but they could all do amazing routines. I think they were all in the parallel bars final, except for Xiao Routeng. At this point, Xiao Routeng is kind of steadily is that gymnast that, like you say, he's got high difficulty, but he's just going about his business, calm, cool, collected, no mistakes, and he's right there in with a shout. At the same time, Dan, on high bar, Felix Dolce, the Canadian gymnast, is doing an amazing high bar routine, and his handguard snaps. And obviously he thinks very fast on his feet. First of all, like, amazing that he didn't really hurt himself. How you know where you are in the air, you just don't, do you? It's really dangerous when you ping off like that. But he stays down. The rules are in gymnastics, if you stay down, lying down, the timer doesn't start, and when you have to get back up on. But there's a new rule now. If your handguard snaps, you have the opportunity to start the whole routine again, which is something that wasn't the case when we were competing. So you'd be able to get a new handguard, or take the time if you stayed down. As soon as you got on your feet, 30 seconds started, but now you can start. So I did wonder, wow, we're going to see him go off the podium, wait until everybody else has performed, and then do a routine again. And you could tell this is a new rule because the commentators didn't understand, didn't know that was happening. Because I was listening to Christian's commentary, which has been amazing, by the way, at the Olympics on Discovery Plus, and his commentary's been great. Like, the technical feedback has been brilliant. I've loved it, and it's very calm. It's like BBC is like, whoa, because you've got the guys on BBC. They're trying to make it real entertainment for the people at home. Christian is like, great analysis, and you just can kind of watch it in peace.
Very technical as well.
Very technical, and it was brilliant. And they were unsure that was a rule, I think. And then obviously comes back on, new pair of handguards, under pressure, ready to do a routine. When you competed yourself, Dan, did you have a spare pair of handguards ready to go in case that happened, or were you just risking it?
No, I always had a spare pair. Okay. Mainly for training. I would never thought it was going to go in. You just don't think like that, do you? You can't think of every negative that could happen in a competition. You're just focusing on your routine. But I mean, what a legend he did, you know.
To get back
Felix,
up.
to get up, and as
catch
well as
the
that,
casino, right?
Catch the casino. But his first routine before he fell,
it was amazing.
So nice.
And
he must have just been so good. Like, I've almost done it and coming up from a dismount. But it was scary. I remember I got back a little bit later, watched the all-round final, so I was watching it on my laptop. So I was a little bit behind the stream on BBC iPlayer. Anyway, Keaton's text me going, oh my goodness, did you see that fall? And I said, no spoilers, I've not seen it yet. Went downstairs, just put it on live, and I couldn't believe it. I was like, thank goodness he's okay. And to get back up, and to do, I was just gutted he couldn't quite do the routine.
To have got all the way to Olympic Games and for it to be a handguard snapping, you can't plan for that, you can't prepare. The only thing you can do really is make sure that your handguards are not old and they're not like on the edge, because you know, don't you, when you're like, I'm not sure how long this is going to last. You have to make sure that they're ready, and you've got a spare pair ready to go. But incredibly gutting for him, but amazing that he got back up.
Amazing,
and then he caught the casino again.
I know.
Just missed that Coleman, but the rest of the team was really, really good. Tell me a little bit then, Dan, about like the Americans. Obviously, Frederick RICHARD, a lot of hype around him going into the all-around final. How difficult is it when you've been part of a team that's been so successful? The first medal America have won since 2008. You've got all of that media attention afterwards. You're maybe going to talk to press. You've not slept well to then get yourself back up. You also know I've already got a medal, so if it goes wrong, I kind of know. Do you know what I mean? That's in the back of your mind, right? Do you think that probably played a role in his performance, just being not quite at where it's been in recent months? Yeah,
potentially, because he looks so solid. The American trials look solid. The qualifications look solid. Some would say the qualifications is probably the most nerve-wracking in terms of just your competition could be over.
That determines everything,
any finals, So I just thought he must have been so ready, and then that mistake happened. And even when it happened, I think it was a slip.
Yeah, he just slipped, right?
He just looked so in control, ready. So I don't know if it was a freak thing, or was it, like you say, mate, the late nights, the media, obviously America as well. Massive achievement for the men. I'm guessing it was late night, loads of interviews, making the most of it. And then not getting much sleep, and then, like you say, he's already got the medal. But I imagine his target was to get an all-round medal as well, from being a bronze medalist at the World Championships previously. So, it was a shame, but he'll be back. You know, what a talent he is.
Out of those top guys on parallel bars, Dan, what's your favourite routine out of those guys? Who was your favourite? You know, when I'm thinking the two Chinese and the Japanese gymnast, what was the routine that stood out for you? Because they're all great on parallel bars, right?
You know I'm rubbish with names. I'm sure there's a Chinese gymnast that does double front half and he doesn't touch his legs.
Okay, yeah, so that's Zhang Boheng, and I spotted that, and it looked like he did like a puck front half and then a back somersault in the second half route. It was incredible. Yeah. I was almost thinking he could do half in and then a full out or something, but I've never seen someone do that. I spotted that as well, mate. And his build as an all-rounder, his legs are so light, aren't? What is the perfect build for an all-rounder, Dan, do you think? You know, if you were going to paint the perfect all-arounder, what would it be?
I think pretty light, you know, semi-light.
Someone like Vanayev, kind of like Uchimura, that kind of build.
Yeah, obviously gymnasts are small in nature anyway. Definitely strong, light, fast twitch. I think that's the makings of it, really. And then after that, it's the style, the hands. I always look for a handstand on people. If you've got a good handstand, I'm like, okay, this sets you apart. You know, you see some gymnasts with beautiful difficulty, but then being arching a handstand. Maybe I'm just nitpicking because I was always getting nitpicked for my handstand. but yeah, I think that's another standout thing. And when these routines are so close, if you can do something just to look a bit different, like Chinese gymnastics, double front half, dismount without touching his leg, it's like, so for me, that was the standout of that routine because no one else had done it. But all super world-class routines, incredible. And the power, the execution, the straddle fronts, a lot of them doing that again now. It's massive. Not as many under somersault one bars, you know, with the healing.
That's changed a little bit, right? Yeah.
And like Joe Fraser's routine, what high risk that is. And he nailed it, incredible.
How good has Joe been at this Olympic Games? Like, I think this has really been almost like his peak. Yeah. And he obviously struggled a little bit at the European Championships in the qualifying, but to have gone to this Olympic Games, the surgeries he's had last year, like 2 surgeries, amazing performance, incredible to get back, get on the team, and then to finish 5th in the world at Olympic Games. Now, I don't know if this is correct, but I believe 5th at an Olympic Games. I feel like Christian finished 6th in London. I don't know that he was 5th. He may have been 5th. If he was 5th, then that's equally the second highest all-around finish ever at an Olympic Games. So for Joe, what an incredible achievement. And then that big routine on P-bars is high risk. And then they all go into high bar. And that last rotation, Dan, what are you thinking going into that last rotation? Are you thinking, right, of those top guys, I think it's between the 2 Chinese, the new Japanese, the young guy, maybe Kovtun, and then you've got Joe, Jake. What are you thinking going into that final rotation?
Yeah, watching them, I thought bars, it's the riskiest piece at the end. I thought Joe was up earlier on. I thought, unfortunately, Jake, I didn't quite think he was going to be able to now that he's had his vault and his floor, his highest pieces, to get onto that bronze medal. But, you know, never
That's the only thing that's probably holding Jake back, isn't it, from being in that close to that top 3 there. It's just the difficulty on probably rings and high bar. But I think he's done an amazing job of raising that difficulty and his performances on pommels. Yeah. Because, you know, he's now become a bit of an anchor for the team on pommels. Swings so well and is scoring over 14, which is difficult to do in this code on pommel horse. Yeah. And it's just that difficulty a little bit on rings and then high bar, but he's still so young. Yeah. Exactly. I think for the next cycle, if you can raise that difficulty on those 2 apparatus, and you can see him doing it in training, he trains a casino, which when he catches is just out of this world. Yeah. I think he's going to be a real challenge in the all-round for the next cycle. He'll be the top all-rounder, I think. Joe, I'm expecting, look, I think after every Olympic Games, everyone thinks the older guys are going to finish, but then they end up being right there in the mix again for the next Olympic Games. So I think Joe will still be there if he wants to, but Jake's probably going to be that main guy going into the next cycle, I think, heading into LA in terms of the all-around. So he did very well. So 7th at Olympic Games, amazing achievement, right? Like, what an achievement that is. Incredible. And I think just because we're so used to medals, you should not forget to be one of the best all-rounders in the world. The all-around is the pinnacle of gymnastics. So he's the 7th best gymnast on the planet. Yeah, and it's the blue ribbon event, isn't it? Amazing, isn't it? It's like, it's incredible. That's what all the gymnasts respect the most, is the all-around champion, right? Because you have to spread your time across 6 apparatus and be the best on 6. So an amazing achievement for me, for him, and then for Joe to go and hit that high bar routine, which again is high risk, right? Goodness. And before, like, the top leaders have done theirs, so I thought, well, Joe's just done an incredible bar routine. He's putting the pressure on. Put the pressure on, and like we saw in the team final,
mistakes are going to happen, especially at the end.
Right?
Yeah,
anything. And was that your approach, Dan, in an all-around final where you start on floor, hit my routine, put the pressure on everybody else?
Stay steady. Yeah, definitely. I mean, unfortunately, bars wasn't my best, highest tariff. It was quite a safe routine, so I was always coming away from bars, into bars thinking, okay, this is good for me in terms of I feel confident, feel steady. I've got through some of the trickier pieces, but I don't know if I'm going to be able to get onto that podium because, like for instance, 2011, I think I was second before Philip Boy went up, and he did the most incredible bar routine because he's a bar specialist.
Yeah.
So some gymnasts have that in the back pocket.
Yeah.
But like I mentioned before, high risk, high reward. So it can pay off or it can't. And you know how consistent they were at the bars on the end under that immense pressure.
Yeah. And they are, that difficulty on high bar now. Those best all-rounders, they're all doing difficult high bar routines. Those routines you're seeing in an all-around final now on high bar are apparatus finals from our time.
Yes.
They're apparatus finalists on high bar, aren't they? So incredible stuff. And high bar is that piece you've got to let go and you've got to catch it.
You've got to go.
You've got to catch it. Like, it's so hard, it's so tough. And for the spectators, it's so exciting to watch. Yeah. And when you're a gymnast, I think, for me, particularly the high bar, you have to be in the mind frame of, right, I'm going out to play to win, don't play not to lose. Because if you try and hold in, you bring it in close. We see the Chinese gymnasts, that's where it can go wrong. Yeah. So incredible performances on the high bar there to finish off. I think Xiao Routeng was just that consistent guy. Yeah. And it could have got another mistake from anyone. It could have easily been the all-around champion. But I think Jang Byeong, to come back from a fall on floor and then to finish second, I had a similar experience in the Youth Olympic Games where I went in as one of the favourites, qualified in second, fell on the floor, sat down, got my way all the way back to second going into the high bar, then fell on high bar. He's managed to keep it together. I imagine he's going to feel like he's given away that gold medal because of his fall in a way, and that's kind of happened twice, right? In the team final and then in the all-around final. So I'm sure he's massively upset because, one mark would have been all the difference. I think it ended up being 2 or 3 tenths. Yeah. With Oka Shinnosuke winning the all-around gold medal at the age of 20. Japanese have now won back-to-back. What is that? 4 back-to-back Olympic all-around titles since 2012, which is pretty amazing, isn't it? It's a reflection of their gymnastics. Yeah. And he's very exciting, his gymnastics. It's really exciting what he does. Beautiful the way he performs it. And so I think, for me, they were the big standouts. Just reflecting, we've had the qualification, the team final and the all-around final. What have been your reflections on the GB team, Dan, so far?
I think the GB lads just been so consistent, under that pressure. Like, it is a mix of younger, and I say older gymnasts, but still young. Like talking about Joe, I think he's still got another 4 years if his body can hold up. But, it's so exciting. Such a good potential, obviously. They all nailed the qualifications. We've got finals coming up. It'd be an expectation now for medal results because of how well, especially Jake's done on floor and vault. I think he's qualified first on floor.
First on floor, maybe third on vault.
Third on vault, wow. Obviously Harry.
Yeah.
Absolutely incredible. Luke, he's come and nailed his floor routine. Fantastic. Joe, did he make the...
Joe isn't in any of the apparatus finals.
He was close,
very
wasn't
close
he?
on a few.
And I thought as well he deserved to be in. Especially, like, it's high bar and pivot. I think the qualification was phenomenal. Yeah. And obviously Max, like we've touched on him this podcast, but oh my goodness, the season champion, and hopefully he can do it one more time. And just, leave it all out there. But it's exciting. I'm a fan of the sport again, which is so good to see because, I don't know if people ask you this, but after London, people say to me, so do you just start training a year before the Olympics? And I was like, no, I guess so. Well, no, I've been doing this since 7 years old. But I get it now, being out of it and just having a regular life. That you only see the majors.
You're only ever going to... And potentially, you might never... Unless you're a gymnastics fan, you're not watching the World Championships or the European Championships because now quite often it's on, say, BBC iPlayer. You have to go out your way to find it. It's only the Olympics when it's on everything and you're going to see it. And it's a great showcase for the sport. I think we're very lucky that we have Simone Biles, who is a massive icon, biggest name in gymnastics since Nadia Comaneci. When I really think about it, I think as gymnastics fans, we consider, maybe Vitaly Sherbo, Alexei Nemov, Kohei Uchimura as being like icons. But we've never had someone on that stature of Simone Biles or Nadia Comaneci, have we? When people think of gymnastics, that's who they talk about. It would be amazing in the future if we could have a male gymnast that is someone that is a proper superstar, that brings that credibility to the sport in men's gymnastics, right? Because it isn't on the same level as the women's, is it? You know,
well, it's
one of the few sports where there are a lot more women taking part, a lot more women watching the sport of women's gymnastics and following in it. And it'd be great if we could have that in the future. I think it's going to take somebody maybe with the personality of someone maybe like Frederick RICHARD, and then it's got the gymnastics to dominate as well at the same time. You know, we've had massive personalities like Fabian Hambuchen in the past, what a legend. But yeah, I think it would be great for the sport of men's gymnastics to just bring a spotlight to it, to have one of those real superstars. But I think the sport is so much about respect.
It's respect, as I was about to say. Look at Conor McGregor. UFC. I mean, I mean, his fights are incredible, but also the way he talks.
It'd be so funny, wouldn't it, to see someone like come out and just start chatting shit, be like, "What did that judge give me gymnastics?" Like
I'm gonna smash that.
It certainly would bring eyeballs to the sport, but it just wouldn't work, would it? Because ultimately, you're not going up to compete. You're not fighting somebody else. Like it isn't built that way, is it? I think maybe it will take a different format of the sport. Somebody comes along with a new idea. We tried the Superstars of Gymnastics. And I did the ultimate gymnastics in the Pro Gymnastics Challenge in America. Now I was done it. Maybe it's going to take that format to build those superstars up.
I think so.
But I think the potential's there. We just need somebody with the means and the ability to put gymnastics on the map, in the spotlight, and generate a huge buzz around it. And we need the right athletes maybe to do that. But yeah, I mean, it's amazing. One thing that does happen around the Olympic Games is that people really respect the sport, don't they? And it's great for us. It's like, that's my sport. I feel proud of it. I want to promote it and tell people how great it is for young people to get into gymnastics as well. But yeah, thank you very much, mate, for coming on and talking about the all-around final.
No problem.
It was amazing. I really enjoyed watching it. I've enjoyed having this conversation with you today and doing a little debrief. And for everybody that's listening, me and Dan, we've also recorded Dan's podcast story today. That's going to come out later in the month. So look out for that. Make sure you're subscribing to the podcast. But Dan, for anybody that potentially might want to get you to come into their school, might be interested in joining gymnastics, live in the local area, where can they find you, mate, and where can they get in contact with you?
Yeah, cheers, Sam. So my own gymnastics club, Dan Purvis Gymnastics, I run it in Formby High School. So we do Thursday nights, Friday nights, Saturday mornings. At the moment, waiting lists are pretty full, but please just get in touch and we'll get you on there. I work for Sports Champions as well, so the schools will all start kicking off after this holiday. And I'll be working for that, for them. And then also I'm at Southport Gymnastics Club. So, you know, the club that I started at. So, yeah, it's all good. But yeah, thank you for having me on. Thank you for translating what I was trying to say as well. I really appreciate that. Problem, sorry for the...
and if there's anyone out there as well, gymnastics clubs listening, maybe you are a coach at a club or you run a club, get somebody like Dan in to share their story, inspire those young kids, bring his Olympic medal in, because I've seen how powerful that is in schools, and I think gym clubs should do that more with the kids. So definitely reach out to Dan personally, get him in, because he's amazing at telling his story. He's a brilliant role model, and also he's a great coach, so use his expertise. So thank you, Dan, for coming on. We really appreciate it, and everybody enjoy the apparatus finals.
Cool. Thank you. My pleasure.